Welcome back to the Big Picture Podcast. Today's guest is Gerard Elmore, an Emmy-winning filmmaker and the Vice President of Film at NMG Network. He's worn about every hat in the business: director, producer, writer, editor, and cinematographer. Gerard's also a passionate mentor, helping guide the next generation of local storytellers through his work as a former lecturer and as executive director of the ʻOhina Short Film Showcase. He's even been recognized by the Sundance Institute for his work behind the scenes. It's an honor to have him on this show. Let's get into it.
I feel like there's two different worlds, and I have definitely chose indie world.
Yeah.
And that is different and sectioned off from the bigger productions.
Yeah.
Different teams, different crews. And everything we've been building is community-based, hands in the dirt.
Yeah.
Like ground up, like Paula and many of the filmmakers maybe never directed before.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
It's good having you. Thank you for making the time to sit down and talk.
Mahalo for having me.
Yeah. Just saw you at the get together on Saturday, which was incredible at the Outrigger, the first ever Waikiki Film Awards. And how'd you enjoy that event?
No, I thought it was awesome. It was a great way to bring everyone together. I think this is a great time to sort of take a breather and actually look back and see kind of the great work that's coming out of Hawaii. Mm-hmm. I might be a little biased because I worked on both of those films that were shown in different capacities and different roles, and they're both ʻOhina Labs projects. But we're just excited that there's people that are hungry and passionate about this industry mm-hmm. that want to do something to continue to build it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I see too. It's just people really having the urge to do something. It's almost like if you're drowning in a way and you're just, trying to get up for air, grasp for air, and you're doing anything at all possible. And I see it as all positive things. And I think the best things are formed under pressure. And I think we're seeing that, like you said. What were the two films for the people who couldn't make it that did showcase at Waikiki Film Awards?
The people who didn't make it?
Yeah, for the people who didn't make it. What was it? Kukini?
Oh, yeah. So the two films were Kukini and The Queen's Flowers. Mm-hmm. And so Kiara Lacey went through the labs program. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. I forgot. She was busy, but we were able to kind of do certain things to make connections and help in a very small way. Mm-hmm. And Kukini was definitely from the ground up, the whole cycle of ʻOhina films, where Paula was there checking out some ʻOhina films at HIF and actually saying, how do I make a movie, to actually applying for funding at Pacific Islanders and Communications, to actually going into ʻOhina Labs, being mentored by Daniel Du Miller and Bryson Chun from Moana. And then from going into making Kukini, and then actually going to the same theater where she watched the ʻOhina shorts and showing Kukini.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So tell me more. Did you help create ʻOhina Labs, or were you just you joined, or how did ʻOhina Labs come about? Tell me about your baby.
Well, so this is where I go into the long history of ʻOhina, because
we're here.
Oh, yeah. ʻOhina existed way before me.
Oh, okay.
And there was actually ʻOhina Showcase, and that was created by Jason Supaia and Jeff Katz. Pacific Focus at the time, before it was 1013 for everyone out there. And so what ended up happening is they were a bunch of local filmmakers who couldn't quite get into HIF and started this offshoot ʻOhina Showcase, which was like the best Hawaii-made, local-made films from Hawaii, the best 2 hours, period, short films. So that was sort of this thing that happened at Homa, Doris Duke Theater, and it was free to the public. It was a free event, and everyone got fired up, production, and eventually it was more competitive than HIF, to be honest. And a great example is the first short film that I ever made. I submitted to HIF, and it was it was accepted to him
Yeah.
and rejected from ʻOhina. So I was rejected multiple times from ʻOhina Showcase. And so when the people come to me and say, how come I didn't get into ʻOhina? I was like, well, I've been rejected multiple times. And it was around for a long time until Jason and Jeff were kind of burnt out by the whole thing. Leanne Ferrer was a part of it as well. And of course, she was the executive director of PIC. So there's a lot of connections. And that was actually 25 years ago. So it was around for a long time. So it's actually so surprising that people don't know ʻOhina, even though it's been around for so long.
Right.
But what has been the newer thing is ʻOhina Labs.
Okay.
And that's been around for about 8 years. And that was something co-created with me and Brian Watanabe, Eric Reese. I'm going to give him credit. He was our brand guy who actually made the introduction to Nate Moore at Marvel. And Nate Moore came as a guest for Showcase. And we had a great conversation with him. And we were like, would it be possible if you sent someone from Marvel to help us with our local filmmakers? I wonder what he would say. Right. And so he goes, I know a guy, and he's working on this film. It's called Black Panther. And his name is Joe Robert Cole. And we had no money to give. Yeah. We had nothing to give other than a room and pay for his flight. And we just threw it out there. We're like, we've always dreamt of a lab where we can develop our local films and our local filmmakers. Joe, would you be interested in helping in this lab, which we don't know what it looks like. We've never tried it. And he said yes. And that experience was magical. And I do give him credit for helping to create the labs. And I tell him that to this day because in that lab, I remember it was invite only. It was filmmakers that were part of the showcase. So this is Alika Tangon, Aaron Lau, Tai Sanga, Philly Hernico, and Mitchell Merrick. So that was the first group. It was an invite only. Joe Robert Cole mentored them. And I remember him reading these scripts and going, I don't know if there's anything I can do about this. They're okay, So I was like, because we were trying our best to impress him, like there's good talent here.
Yeah.
And he was kind of, he was kind of like that.
Love the honesty.
No, he was honest. So I knew he's going to be honest with our filmmakers, and that's what we need. If we're going to get to the next level, we're going to have to be honest. So I remember that moment and going, oh man, I hope he's going to like what we have. And the first day went well, and everyone was taking notes, and the second day, everyone had to incorporate notes and re-pitch. And that second day, and I think Joe's okay with me mentioning this, but he was just crying. He was just crying because he was like, these stories matter. And his agent was calling him, and he's like, where are you? What are you doing? And he's like, I'm somewhere where I need to be. Yeah. And I feel like I need to be here. And it was just an amazing moment. He decided to mentor Alika Tangon, take him under his wing, and the film that came out of that lab with his mentorship was Maukana Makai.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Oh,
and so our first ʻOhina projects that we greenlit because the idea was we're going to greenlight something, and we're going to produce it. We're going to find ways to create and make these films, not just talk about them or workshop them. We're going to need to create them. And so that first film was Kaleva, and it was a big hit. I think it's got like 400,000 views online. It got picked up by Criterion. It won awards all around the world. And then it got picked up by Dust, which is this sci-fi thing. And I think it's kind of full circle that was Mitchell, and now it's Mitchell with Kukini that's going viral, Yeah. So it's kind of amazing where we're at. But that's how ʻOhina was born. And from there, we've been able to corral these Hollywood mentors who want to come here. And now we've gotten to the point where we actually have people who are part of labs that are now mentoring, like Bryson Chun. Sure. He was year 2. And then he came back after Moana and Doogie. So we're seeing the results of labs and seeing that after 8 years, we're up to 30 films coming out of the labs program.
Wow. That's incredible. So when you guys created the lab section of it, was it always you always knew that you wanted to take a creator from the writing process all the way through to through the production process and then the distribution? And are you teaching that in your labs?
The idea behind the labs and why it was started is because at Showcase, we'd always see this peaks and valleys with the quality of films. So it was all over the place. And audiences would always comment. They're like, oh, some of them are good.
Yes.
Some of them are good.
I've been to some of those.
Yeah. It's 2 hours and people are just struggling to stay.
Yeah.
So labs was a response to that.
Okay.
How can we elevate so that it's consistent and then it is not a chore? That everyone, all these films are at equal level and that they're of strong quality. So the idea was, how do we take something at a script level? Because when you get it at a finished level, there's not a lot you can do.
Right.
So at a script level, you can still do a lot. Now at a script level, after all these years, we can now identify that's going to be too expensive. That's not practical. That's not producible. These are resources you can realistically get and will get you to the finish line. So you may need to pare it back. You need to do this so that it can be made.
Yeah.
And at the script level, we attack it that way. Now, at the Greenlight level, there's usually one, sometimes two. And what that means is finding funds, giving them up to $10,000. And then up until this point, using my gear for all these short films, letting them borrow the lenses, the cameras, and all that they need, maybe production insurance or whatever it takes to get their films made. And then at that point, we help them get through the process, sometimes on set, a lot of times on set, and then get into festivals, which ones are going to be good fits, which ones are worthless. I'm going to be honest, a lot of festivals are worthless. If you're chasing laurels, great. But for the most part, there's going to be 20, 30 people in the audience. You're not reaching a lot of people. And we've found this through a lot of the films that we've gone around the world with. And then the distribution part is starting to get clearer with the mass amount of short films we've touched. And so as we've progressed, at 8 years, now we're seeing what works,
right? And that changes. I mean, that changes by the second, right? How things can be distributed. And I talk about it in my podcast and just in general. I think that's the most education that would benefit local filmmakers is the distribution process. I think the more people that can get educated and understand that process, the more it trickles back, like you said, down to a realistic script even, right? And so I wanted to ask that is like, how did you figure all this out? Obviously, you've done it yourself. And tell me about you as a filmmaker and how did you get into it? What made you want to be in this industry? Did you always know?
Well, this is a long story.
Yeah. I mean, we got like 45 minutes left.
The current job is I'm a VP of film at NMG Network. We do publications like Flux Hawaii, Hana Ho, and things like that. So that's a stability right now. But to go back in time, I started out as an actor. And I wanted to be an actor in high school. We made films in high school. And acting was the thing I wanted to do. In fact, I was on a couple shows, like Beyond the Break and The Lost. Yes, as bit roles. I had a recurring part on Beyond the Break, but that's where I met Brian Kailana. Yeah. I met a lot of the OGs in the business. And so from there, after acting and getting tired of chasing the parts, I decided I wanted to create my own destiny and learn how to shoot, learn how to edit, and craft my own films. And so I started to learn all the departments, everything. And as I progressed and as I got more comfortable with it, I became a little bit more director. And I just did a lot of short films on my own, and I was constantly getting the hiff with all the short films year after year after year until I did a feature film that I wrote and directed, and Vince Chialocero was one of the guys, Scott Mason the other, that helped me with that one, and totally indie with no money.
Yep.
And learned a lot doing that. And what you learn most is from failure.
Yeah.
And I tell people this story a lot. I made this movie called All for Melissa. In Hawaii, you're embraced. Everyone loves you. But it's kind of what happens if you want to be a filmmaker, which is it was one of the, I think the first Hawaii films, local films to ever, or the first to be on the front page of Hulu.
Wow.
When it was still brand new.
Right.
And so we ended up on the front page of Hulu, as we talked about distribution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought I made it because it got into blockbusters everywhere,
Wow.
got picked up distribution. So I thought that was the dream.
Yeah.
And then it was on the front page of Hulu, right? Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I made it. Like, this is what we dream of, right? Exactly. And it was back when it was still blockbusters around, you know? So you could see how far away that was from now, right? And how much things have changed. But I remember seeing like pages and pages of like the worst comments of all time. Because you got to imagine this is a free movie that people are watching. So they're saying stuff like, this is what they show the prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. This is the worst movie I've ever seen. Please make it stop. I couldn't last 2 minutes. Like, it's the worst of all time. Yeah. It's so much that you're curling up in a ball and you're like, did I make a bad movie? And people were teasing me and all that. But that is what I tell people. That's the moment I became a filmmaker. Because you could either choose to stop and quit, or you're going to double down and you're going to figure out what's going to connect with the audience. Now, was the movie a failure? I would argue no, because then I would, after that wave, and also putting in context, it's a free film that doesn't look like a blockbuster. And seeing the few that would cut through and be like, I saw this at Blockbuster. I thought it was amazing. It inspired me to make my own. And you hang on to that. Yeah. And then you build on that. And then you say, how are we going to get better? How are we going to become a better filmmaker? And maybe this didn't connect with everyone, but, I feel like this is the movie I wanted to make. Yeah. And if you are going to be a filmmaker, you need to be able to stare at that and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different levels of acceptance you try to gain from your peers, number one, right? And then there's that level of acceptance you try to gain from everyone else. But I think the first level of acceptance that you get from your peer filmmaking friends is completing a project. Like I see this quote now on Instagram, but I've thought this for a long time, right? It's like, anybody who just completes a project, you already got my mad respect, because if anybody would know what it takes to just do a project, and I mean complete it, like finish it, that takes a lot. And I respect anybody doing, no matter how it turns out. I got to be honest with you, it's like, it might suck, but I'll still automatically give them respect.
That's 100%. And I agree with that sentiment, because what I also say is, I say it took like 20 terrible short films to get to one mediocre one to eventually figure out what a good one is. And even to this day, I see mistakes and things I would do better with all the ones we've worked on. Oh, yeah. But definitely there was a point, where we can identify if it's a good movie, And so that comes after failure, and lots of failure, and adapting and getting better. How can I make it better? And you can't just do a one and done and think you're going to be Spielberg. It's just not going to work that way.
No. Yeah. So when you were an actor, and do you remember when because I think about that all the time. I mean, I've gotten told that even, with my interest of being a director or a DP one day, everybody asks, oh, what do you want to, I say the most classic, oh, maybe director or DP. But my good friend, Jim Jose, is a camera operator. I was like, oh, maybe I'll get into camera. And then if I'm a utility long enough, then I'll be a second, then, first, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe I'll operate one day. And then from there, I'll be a DP or be good enough to be a director. And he looked at me, he's like, why don't you just make your own project and you be the director? And it hit me, and it sounds silly, it sounds crazy, but honestly, that's all it takes, and for you, as an actor, to pivot to saying, you know what, I don't think I could fill a role better than one that I could create for myself, and then going to make that film that you're the actor. And I think that's a genius idea. I think a lot more people should actually go in that direction, but that sends you off into this journey of being a filmmaker and needing to learn how to light, how to operate a camera. Do you remember the first project that you actually made on your own, and who worked on it? Is that any of those people still around?
Yeah, actually, the best piece of advice was from one of my best friends that I made music videos with in Campbell High School. He told me, because he went to film school, and I was thinking of going to film school to learn the ropes. And he said, don't do that. Just take the money that you were going to take for film school and just make a movie. And that's what I did, all from most of that feature film that I talked about.
Wow.
That's how I got into it. And so our first films were just down and dirty. I mean, one of my first films, like I made for like $500. It was called Amazing. And it had Paul Gata, Annie Bumatai, all the comedy legends, because I was in stand-up at the time. And so we made it for like $500. And I remember someone asking about it, and they're like, wow, how much was the budget? I was like, $500. But if you gave me $5,000, I would have made Troy, because I did my own VFX. I shot it. I was in it. I directed it. I colored it. I edited. You learn the most. If you can learn all of the departments, you can figure out how to make a movie.
Yeah, for sure. You didn't actually really have to make too many short films before having a semi-successful one, or did it actually take you a whole bunch of short films?
A bunch of short films.
Oh, good.
It's like your first time when you do stand-up comedy, you bomb. I haven't seen a lot of people try the first time and like are geniuses. You usually bomb that first time. It's the same thing with filmmaking.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot coming out of the gate where you're just like, you're perfect. You have to kind of like stumble through and figure out what works and what doesn't. And if you have no clue, then you need a team that knows, And so when you're alone, that's a very lonely place to be. But like with ʻOhina and kind of the concept of how we think of filmmaking, the more you can roll that big boulder up the hill, it's really hard if you're by yourself. But there comes a point where the community starts to help push that boulder. So you could start to earn the trust of the community, and they buy in, then it becomes much easier to make the film. And that's what takes a lot of time, and what takes a lot of love, and a lot of patience too.
Yeah. What were some of the biggest challenges that you first encountered in filmmaking, and specifically in Hawaii? You're like, man, we don't either have this, or I wish we had that. What was one of the first big challenges you saw?
Oh, no money. You have money.
Right.
And this is what I always tell people. If you want to be a filmmaker, you're never going to have money on the first go. No one's going to say, oh, I believe in you, $1 million. You're going to need to be thrifty, crafty, and you got to be a hustler to figure out how you're going to make a movie out of nothing. And unfortunately, that's the only way you can start. I see a lot of people who start out and they want to instantly be director, and I laugh. I started off as PA, and I was an extra. And then an extra on Forgetting Sarah Marshall or whatever big movie, I'm there just studying, like I'm hearing how they rehearse, I'm learning like how they direct, like I'm taking notes, and these other people are complaining about food, and I'm like, I'm here to learn. And there's an attitude these days where they're like complain about everything. And when I was an extra, I was eating it up. I was like, let me learn the lingo, let me learn everything. And I did everything. PA, I was yelled at, all that jazz. But I embraced it. And I think that's what a lot of people need to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think just getting your foot in the door, no matter what, in this industry is key. And a lot of times, every time, you're going to do that for free. You're going to be volunteering on a short film for someone who actually, is a few steps ahead of you. But most of them started off doing things for free. And you can learn, once your foot is in the door in whatever position, you can learn so much, and
I agree.
I talked about this on the last podcast. It was like, as a grip, it wasn't until I tried to attempt to make my first showdown short film that it spawned on me like, hey, I can learn all these things actually as a grip. Let me go walk over to the sound card. Let me talk to Sean Rush and Travis Hoover about sound and everything. They would get irritated about me coming over and talking about that. I'd go to Diane, ask her about script supervising and what's important about that. And then, of course, I got to push Dolly, which put me right next to the camera, where I could hear about lens changes, sizes, framing, so as long as you get your foot in the door and you're willing to learn and wanting to learn, I think, no matter where you get in, getting in is an important part.
Yep, I agree.
Do you feel like what do you feel like we need to do currently to be more successful here in the film industry, or allow the film industry to flourish a little bit more here? What is your perspective on things, specifically as an independent filmmaker, right? You've been in that arena pretty much the whole time. So it's something that I want to know. What are your challenges and what can we do to improve that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to that question. And I'll try to dissect. And I think you wanted to talk about challenges of the industry, right? Now, I'll start there because I think, there's two different worlds, and that's why I think it doesn't intersect. For the longest time, my personal focus has been, how do we build the community? And how do we kind of lift this whole community up? How do we tell these underrepresented stories? How do we give underrepresented filmmakers a voice? So it was a different track. And there's definitely a point in my career where I had to make a choice. I wanted to direct, but I had to step back because I said, I need to help these filmmakers. And that was labs. And since then, I've realized I've become more of a producer. And I'm still directing and I'm still doing stuff, but it's definitely my eyes always like, okay, what needs help? What do we need to do to build this thing? With that being said, I think we're in a period of transition. So if you've seen Babylon, it does it really well, where we transition from silent films into talkies. And I believe right now we're transitioning from kind of this movie theater format to something that's more streaming. We're also seeing the rise of AI, and we're also seeing how the size, the imprint, or the crew size is changing, and the approach to filmmaking is changing. The budgets are being slashed. Everything is being rethought. Everyone is chasing tax incentives, the currency, the different government incentives. But what I truly think is happening is that we're in a period of transition. So it's never going to look the same. It's never going to go backwards. And I always make this point that we're at the point where we're not going to see new movie theaters either. We're now defending movie theaters. So when you accept that reality, we need to rethink our reality. And so the indie format, a lot of people are calling the punk rock of film, and I would agree with that. And we're kind of the MacGyvers. So what do you do? How can you make a big film with very little money? How can we build something with nothing? And so there's a lot of answers that could come from that. And I believe pretty firmly, and I think other filmmakers would agree, that we also need to rethink the payment and the sustainability of film. So some of the ideas that we're talking about is giving equity, not just to your producers or to your actors, but to the whole film crew. So that means the grip, the PA, everyone gets the same stake.
I love that
in the
idea.
film.
What about the same risks, though?
Same, was that?
What about the same risks?
That's the thing, you all share.
Right.
Because this is not a crazy idea. Sing Sing did it with their film. It's a low-budget film. It had Coleman Domingo. And so to buy into this format, everyone has to buy into this idea that everyone gets the same rate. So with Sing Sing, I believe Coleman Domingo got $700 a day.
Okay.
That PA got $700 a day. And Coleman Domingo on the residuals got the same amount as that PA.
Really?
Yeah.
I was gonna. Not even the residuals are scaled.
No.
Wow.
No. So there's that format out there.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that there could be a version of that in Hawaii moving forward. So if we can come up with ways to make kind of micro features or things that are cheaper and people own it, now now the whole crew has an incentive to promote it, to want to sell it, to work harder, but now everyone owns it. Because the model that it is now, the Apple TVs or whatever, they have the money, but they own all of it. Right? You're never going to get money. You're work for hire. You're going to make your money on set. That's it. Move on. If we give everyone equity, you're going to make money if we sell it, and then we can move on and make more. And so I believe that's a good format and something that we should investigate.
No, I love that. I've heard that idea. I think like Zendaya did it in one of her things, and everybody like ended up making bank, right?
Yeah.
I think. Have you investigated that a bit on your own and seen how that works, or implied it anywhere?
Yeah. No, we started to talk about this on a film, a couple of micro features that we're developing, and so we are trying to actively pitch this as a way forward. And I firmly believe that we should be looking at it, because if we're trying to find solutions, we're not going to find solutions by doing the same thing over and over again. I think we need to be radical, and I think we need to try new things. And we are now starting to see what takes off. I mean, Kukini's up to 500,000 views in a month.
Wow.
You know, and no one knows, no marketing, organic word of mouth.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of our most successful ʻOhina short films, but it is the most successful pick film, period. So probably one of the most successful in the Pacific, and it's only been a month.
Awesome.
You know?
Congrats, man.
Yeah. And so that's because I think we tapped into culture, we tapped into genre, we tapped into something that transcends Hawaii. And there's things that are going to work. And so with short films, you can figure that out. And then when you're ready to make that leap, you need someone like Coleman Domingo who's going to buy into that equity idea. So you need kind of these stars to understand and believe as well. And that also comes with developing the talent. So if the talent is good enough, it's going to be easier to sell that, right? And so a lot of what we believe in is our local talent and building it here. But we also need help too. So if we can get that star, we get someone to sign up to our crazy idea, man, we're going to be able to do some radical things. And there's already, I feel like, positive energy headed in a great direction with these community-built features and short films. I feel like that's a lot of our possible solutions moving forward. Yeah. But also, when we talk about tax incentives and lobbying, if we could build in incentives, if it's Hawaiian-made, if it has Alelo Hawaii in it, culture in it, keep tacking on incentives. So then we can employ more people, but we can also cultivate and create more IP. So we can export it out of Hawaii.
Yeah, IP is the important one, the tricky one. We had your wonderful wife on here speaking about that, Marisha. And, you know, I went home from that conversation with her, like, what is that? And looking into it. And that is kind of a tricky one. Like, how do you capture the IP of a culture? Do you know? And
no, I know.
Because that's what people are selling, you know, our people are buying, right? That's what our state is kind of selling. So how do we, you know, that's a tricky one.
Well, I think it's how it's framed, because, you know, like saying aloha or anything like that and saying that's IP, that would be dangerous.
Right.
But when we talk about IP, we're talking about stories, characters, things of that sort, right?
Okay.
Not culture, because that would be extremely dangerous, and I would not advocate for that, because culture is not to be trademarked and anything like that. But what we're talking about when we talk about IP is the characters you create, right? The names of the characters, right? The scenarios, the stories. You like 1790 can't be copyrighted, right? That's not IP. But like a Kukini name, it's so and so, right? That's IP, right? And the characters in the story, that's IP.
Oh, there we go.
Right, so that's the IP we are talking about. Okay. So when you create something else and it has the same character, same name, and things like that, that's your IP, right? It's not aloha or language or anything like that. Okay. So I want to make sure that we separate those two, right? Because I would never advocate for that, and you know that's definitely a dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's when I was thinking of how tricky that's gonna be.
No.
But you know, once we start basically maybe looking into that formula of everybody basically sharing, and first of all, I agree with you. Like, we need to start thinking radically. We need to start thinking outside the box of solutions that is basically gonna help us become self-sustainable, right? And I've said it before. It's like, I feel somewhat responsible. I've been only in the industry like 20 years. My dad been in it 40. I feel responsible that I was not even a part of anything cultivating a self-sustainable system here, in the littlest ways, and maybe it was a lack of leadership, or people was just sitting pretty for so long. They never thought about that, or could have been greedy people at the top. Who knows? There could have been a million reasons why we at this point haven't gotten self-sustainable yet. But it's something that we really need to, and the fire has been lit under all our asses on this issue.
Yeah.
And so people are brainstorming. Everybody got these great ideas, which is cool. But we should all try to come together, work together, where we're not all screaming out our ideas at everyone, whether it's politicians or studio owners or whoever it is. That we come together and kind of suss this thing out. I mean, guys like you, your wife, incredible people in the film industry, local filmmakers, producers, we all can collab and actually find a way forward if we just spent the time to sit down and at least spoke about it, right? Yep. And let everybody be heard. Because I've heard that too, and I know that's going on, that even at the state level or legislation and the bills, unfortunately the bill that got left on the table last session is still on the table, and we want to talk about how it's going to get better. And those uplifts, like you were explaining, is something we really need to suss out that'll help our independents, our lower budget films, and not just fish to these big feature films, which are great, our long-term shows, which are great for infrastructure, but also keep in mind the people trying to make these, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 budget, because you can't qualify for this state credit and unless it's $100,000 or more, which did come down from $200,000. Right. So everybody's trying to work on things to get things better. Right. It just takes communication.
It's going to need to be radical, because we still need Chief of War to do really well, to come back. And right now, one of the things we need to be fighting for is to bring more of that back to Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And so at the ledge level, things have to happen. Mm-hmm. And so whatever needs to happen, hopefully that happens. Mm-hmm. But at the local level, we're trying to create more above the line jobs locally. And I don't think we've had a lot of that, or maybe ever, where I guess Jason Momoa is the closest we get to someone just bringing the show, who's at the top, who owns it. Yeah. But that's what we need more of if we want to create our own destinies.
Right. You got The Rock, right? And I mean, these are all assumptions. I don't know these guys personally yet, but, you assume that they have it in their heart to want to bring things. The Martin Scorsese movie that The Rock is, trying to be a part of. You're right, though. And would it be a dream if in one of your shared equity scenarios, you get a guy like Jason Momoa or The Rock, to bring that, I guess, just that spotlight on local films? I think you're onto something. Like, you're onto something. I feel like Hawaii people, hold Hawaii and where they're from so dearly that if they ever made it big, or if they ever made it recognizable, it wouldn't matter. They would want to come back to work on a film created here by people from here, So
I would agree. And look, I'm not saying, because it sounds like socialism, right? But I'm not even saying that you share it equally. But I think what I'm trying to say is, if you give more to the team that's building the project, they're going to invest in the project instead of it's just a job. Yeah. And I got to think that filmmaking is more than just a job for a lot of us, right?
Yeah. I mentioned that, the risk involved, because I think, and I'm not trying to defend these corporate studios or anything like that, but I think it's a realistic thing that, everybody always wants to point the finger at the investors almost, right? The people funding the project. And I try to tell people, all the time, like, it usually takes 10 movies for you to get a banger hit.
Yeah,
And so a lot of people are putting money out on, 5 projects, hoping at least one of them returns investment on all 5, because you're going to have 4 losers, 3 losers, And so, in that shared equity space, I think people might learn a little bit more of the risks involved and why, the thought process of hiring, right? Why do you are hell bent on hiring this particular guy from this particular place? Well, because he has a skill set that is most likely gonna give your film a higher chance of success and return on investment.
Yeah. And what happens in kind of the format that I'm highlighting is that if they do well, then you're going to have your rock solid team moving forward, and anyone that's going to join your team is going to be more vetted, more making sure we have the right team and that everyone gets along. Right? There's going to be no nonsense in that sort of format. Right? Get out of here, because you're going to take our money with you. So it's sort of like you're going to get the best of the best. You're going to get people who want to be there. I honestly believe in my bones that's part of the solution. It may not be the full solution.
So, do you think Kukini, maybe its success and it's found 400,000 views in a month? Do you think that's influenced by the success of Chief of War at all? And what do you think Chief of War will do for all the films coming out locally made for the Hawaiian culture specifically?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's kind of hard to say, but I said it, Chief of War is what is needed in the moment, because it is at the highest level of visibility, it has global visibility, and everyone's talking about it. And even if there's people who don't like it, you cannot disagree that we're talking about culture, we're talking about language, we're talking about how it looks, the costumes and everything like that. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing. And so, the timing works out. So you have something that's highly visible like that. And then there's a movie like Kukini that comes out, the scrappy indie, all built in Hawaii version of it. But I think it only adds to the dialogue. It's a kind of like a trailer for it, and it's a different story. It's not Chief of War. In fact, some of the comments that we're reading is like, "Oh, didn't see this episode of Chief of War," and I was like, "Well, that's a compliment." I was like, "So you think it's Chief of War? It is not. Oh, yeah. This was totally done with rubber bands and paper clips. It's not the same."
But it's amazing. I think Chief of War has done it. It opened the door to pique people's interest in the many stories that Hawaiians have, the Hawaiian culture has, that has been passed on for generations, just orally and even written. These stories, there's so many stories that are written that are ready to be made. And so I'm glad that in some way, shape, or form, that everyone's actually getting some spotlight on their projects, and do you plan now to go further with Kukini and those storylines, or do you have other projects in mind spinning off that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jason Momoa said it best. He said this is going to open up the opportunities for the next generation of filmmakers, and I think specifically Hawaii filmmakers. Yeah. So the timing works out. And literally, as I was walking to this podcast, we were talking about what's next for Kukini, because we cannot sort of let up on this momentum that's coming from it, and the enthusiasm and the sort of response that we're getting. It was always envisioned as a feature. Paula pitched it as a feature film, fully formed feature film to me. But now, as you sort of made the short, I think we all collectively were like, we could do way better. Like, we did this with no money. I mean, give us some money, and we're going to make this way better. We got other storylines we didn't think about that we can, pull into it. Paula has ideas. The whole team has ideas. And so we're in an exciting place that we're probably going to come together and talk about it as a group, because Kukini is a great example that we all feel like the community rallied behind Paula's idea and created this beautiful gift. And to create it, there was a lot of things that had to go right. And everything had to go right or the whole thing would have fell apart. And so there was a high level of risk and difficulty to stick the landing. And I'm really proud of how, it came together. And Mitchell is kind of a wizard. And going back to ʻOhina, having our first Greenlight and then, ending up with Kukini kind of dominating like it is. I'm proud of Mitchell and just proud of like what we're able to create together. And to me, it is a template of like how we build, and it's exactly what I was starting to mention. Like if you make connections, if you spend time more time making the connections, then it's going to become easier and easier with these bigger ideas, right? So Kukini required every ounce of community support. And if any of that went away, there's no Kukini. If there's no, ahu'ula, there's no Kukini. It looks lame, If the tattoos are wrong, it looks lame. Like there's so many factors that are going on. Now, because of Chief of War, the standard is higher. And so that's what has to be. If you want to come into this arena, we're going to have to match this level,
That means we have to build depth, right? Like you said, if this didn't come through, we're screwed. If this didn't come through, but now if we start to add depth,
yes, exactly.
I mean, we deal with this, with short films. If your one guy is just so happen, doing sound on another thing, you're like kind of shit out of luck, or, so, but yeah, and that's in every field. I say that because we need it as grips. We need it as electricians. In every, phase, we need depth. And I think I do put out there, like a lot of people, like, hey, we can do it. Hawaii can do it. There's also a part of me that knows when we will exhaust our workforce.
Right.
And honestly, it's, 2 shows and we're kind of exhausted, right? A feature film and a show, so adding that depth is critical. And like you said, we got to be honest. We got to be honest with ourselves. If we want to up the level of our games, we got to bring ourselves up to the standards that we're expected to be. And if not, exceed those standards.
It's exactly right. And the way we look at it, because, we're starting to get more serious, is that we are competing against the world. It's not against the continent. We're competing against the globe, the world. And we're always hitting barriers of, as far as you could possibly push it. But we need to break through all the barriers. And what I mean about barriers is certain festivals won't take the Hawaii films. Or, Hawaii films will only go so far, no matter how good they are. So we need to break through that. And I think Chief of War is going to break through that, going to do that for us. Yeah. So to Jason's point, it'll break through. And now we now have a hole to kind of break through with him. Because like Kukini was out and about before Chief of War. But now it looks like it's trailblazing, only after the fact, right? Like it's kind of hard to go after the fact. Like, hey guys, I kept saying, this is one of a kind.
And like you said, the film festivals will do the same. It's like, oh look, a Hawaiian film with culture and language. Like we gotta have that, as opposed to it not being accepted before. And it's a little bit, you get rubbed the wrong way. When you see that kind of stuff, like, oh, now you're interested, because something's trending. But that is the way of the world.
It is.
Where do you see ʻOhina Labs moving? Do you like the way it is now, and you feel like that process is locked in over there at ʻOhina Labs, or is there still a lot that you're like, oh, we can do this and this better?
Now you're getting into exciting questions. So, and not to say, building the industry is exciting, but ʻOhina Labs is going to double down. This is a time that we have to double down. I feel like this is the moment. It's the same thing when I became a filmmaker. Either you quit or you're going to double down in this moment where funding is being stripped and our opportunities are going away. So we got a lot of exciting things that are coming up. And, I've been working on this film about the Micronesian youth and Cam 4 housing with Sonny Gannigan. And we're really proud of the film. It's a film that we made with no money at first, just ran out and made a movie. But now we're kind of introducing these radical ideas. Remember, I mentioned radical in terms of like structure, equity, and things like this. But even rethinking how you make a movie And so with the arrangements, these are real kids. They're not actors. You know, we're telling a story that's real in Camp 4 housing. And it's from his experience as a representative in Kalihi. And so, you know, we stepped in knowing full well that this may fall apart and be a failure. We've somehow, some way made a movie, you know, you know, and it's going to film festivals. But that's not the exciting part. The exciting part is we're making this thing. And I was talking to Randy Wong at the Hawaiʻi Symphony. And so they're like, hey, you know, we're thinking, is there any way we can collaborate with music and film and things like that? And I go, I got an idea. The arrangements, we're making this film. How about if the Youth Symphony scores this film for youth? And so right now, Michael Thomas Fumai, who's a composer at Hawaii Youth, not Hawaii Youth, the proper symphony, Hawaii Symphony, but he's composing something that the Youth Symphony is going to score at HPR. They're partnering with it, and they're gonna make this score in a couple weeks, you know, for this film about, underrepresented youth Micronesians who are discriminated against in Hawaii. And now we start a dialogue in the community. They're like, I never knew this existed. I never knew these kids existed. I didn't know this was an issue. And now we have these kids that have never heard that either, now performing for these kids. With the idea that eventually we want to have them play live to the film in the movie theater and take this on the road, you know? Yeah.
That's unlocking a whole nother thing that we haven't ever tapped into. Scoring, just a whole bunch of post-production things. But, you know, to see it live and really open the minds of other arts that can be, you know, interwoven into what we're doing. And, you know, it's nothing new. It's been happening elsewhere. And like you said, like tapping into it, that's genius.
Because I remember I talked about connections.
Yeah.
So now we're connecting with an organization that no one reached out to. And so whenever we say that this is our idea, they're like, we never thought about it. It's because we made a connection, we started talking, and you start to find these new connections. Because we need to be radical with how we move forward. Yeah. When we do things like that, it's easy for the community to rally, you know? And this is what I talked about, the boulder up there. The more hands, the more connections, and the more people buy into it, it becomes easier. Because now when I tell the story and I tell what we're doing, now everyone wants to help. Oh, you're doing that. Yeah. I want to, that's revolutionary. That never tried that. The Youth Symphony is like, we never tried that. Oh, this is exciting. Let's do it. And now other filmmakers like, oh, could I do that? You know? But then your theater experience now changes, right? It's something different. It's exciting. And this is the sort of thing that ʻOhina is talking about. Now we're talking about maybe adding a producer's lab. There's not enough producers. We need more producers if we're going to create more stories. Yes. Right now, it's a bottleneck. There's not too many producers who are willing to do this work, that are kind of willing to kind of push these crazy ideas forward. That's one part of it. And the other part of it is that we want to bring in more mentors, and we're gonna reach for bigger mentors, but we're also want to have our alumni come back, because we're at the point where the alumni are good enough to be mentors. Yeah. And we want to keep our hands in the dirt and still build it. But now we're going to get to the point where we want to do micro features. We want to do feature films, and we want to get to the point where we are creating sustainable jobs for people here.
I think that's great. All incredible ideas. How does someone get involved with ʻOhina Labs? Is it very selective, like you said? What is the selection process like?
Yeah, so ʻOhina, everything ʻOhina, unless it changes, has always been free. So at the start of this podcast, I said how Showcase was free. And so it was donations, and that's how they did everything. To this day, Labs is free. Showcase is free. Showcase is basically whatever comes out of Labs now. It was different before, but whatever is produced from Labs becomes Showcase. And so it's totally free for anyone to apply. It's already closed, but how it's selective is actually a very democratic process. The way that we do it now is alumni of the program are kind of our first round. So people who've gone through Lab look at all the scripts. there's letters and there's bios, and we try to look at the people and the project and kind of look at it kind of like an organic approach to it. So we talk to alumni. We also talk to former mentors and current mentors. And then kind of the team does a kind of a chime in with everything. And it's like 2 or 3 rounds before we get to the final 10. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes through as much of a gauntlet to make it as fair as possible.
How many applications are you getting per year now?
We're up to like 250. They come from around the world.
Really?
Yeah. And we keep saying, this is Hawaii only.
Oh, really?
This is Hawaii base. And then people are trying to get in. And we're like, no.
So it sounds like you bring a rough draft of a script that you've been working on. Then you kind of, turn in a bio, maybe a resume. And how is that? Is that online that you're turning all this in? Or
yeah, it's all online through Film Freeway, and, our website's a little rough because we just been focused on other things. But, yeah, it's usually through Film Freeway, and that's how you can submit.
Do you ever have people come at you as maybe a team, like someone who has worked, with a team to create the script that they have so far?
Yeah, and that's happened a few times where there's a fully formed team. They come through labs just to sharpen it up, and then it's off and running. Good example is one that's is being made right now called Spammed. Mm-hmm. You may have seen it. They have their cute fundraiser going on right now. Oh, yeah. We funded half of the film, thanks to Georgia D-Bed and Creative Industries for helping ʻOhina with that part of it. And they already have a team, Chapin Hall and Kanani Kozer and Lee Johnson came through the lab as a team. And now they're kind of fully going for it.
What would put somebody at as a front runner to get into labs? Like just from your one seat in this democratic process of onboarding everyone.
Yeah, everyone gets angry at me. They don't get in. I've had so many haters, and I'm like, do you know how hard? Like I've been rejected, and I don't have any say. I mean, maybe I have a little say, but it is fully like there's a lot of people looking at this.
Right.
And the thing is, it just needs to be a unique voice. It just needs to come through like a unique voice, because I share this all the time. Mitchell was like the last guy in labs. He was an alternative, on that first round with Kaleva. And look how that turned out. Sonny Gannigan, last in the lab, alt as well. And it's because maybe the script wasn't sharp enough, or there was something where everyone was like not in agreement. And if you could get into the labs, then there's a pitch, and it's a little bit more beyond the script. So what I would encourage people, it's not just the script, it's the whole package. So if you can write in the letter, like what makes you special, why your voice, why this story, why it matters. I mean, that's a lot of ʻOhina. A lot of our films have been community oriented. Like, how are we going to make a difference? Film does have the power to change. How are you going to make a change? We are at the point where I think the stories we're telling have a change, make a change. Even if it's a funny script or if it's comedy, we're looking for something that's going to do something. It's not just a romantic comedy for the sake of romantic comedy, right?
Yeah.
It's a romantic comedy that takes place in Chinatown, and it talks about some of the issues that are happening there. Now we're getting warmer, right?
Do you try to do that? Try to find genre, okay, we want this many in this genre, or not really? It just plays out how it plays out.
We really don't care about genres, but I'll be honest, genres are the ones that do well, right?
Yeah.
So the first one was sci-fi that went crazy, and the one we got now, action adventure, right?
Are you a sci-fi guy?
Yeah, yeah. But we there's no preference when it comes to ʻOhina.
Yeah.
It's eclectic.
Have you had people apply for ʻOhina multiple years and continue to try? Do you advise that, and you tell people keep trying?
Yes, we've seen multiple entries by the same people, and sometimes it takes 3 times and they eventually get in, which is a huge win. And then we've had a few, it took them 3 times, they got in, and they got in the next year too. So you can't, it's not just a one and done with ʻOhina. You could actually come back again.
Right.
And we've had a lot of repeat.
Different script.
Yeah, different script or different team, and it's exciting to see their progress and how they progress as writer-directors. And sometimes maybe they don't want to direct, and so they need to look for a team. And so, we help with those connections as well. You need a DP, you need this. But on the other side, on the community side, that DP needs to be willing to do it for, peanuts.
Free.
Yeah. So that's the thing. And that's why I end up DPing myself, or, it's a lot of us picking up the slack.
Yeah, I love that part. I don't love the pay on that part, but I love being able to sit there and I know, when you're giving your free time or, working for very minimal, one thing that helps me out, be present in the moment and give my time, is knowing that whatever project that I'm giving my time for is going to take that project with a passion, complete it, number one, because I've been on a lot of free projects that don't even get completed, and then have actually an opportunity to make a change in the world, number one, and be successful, maybe out at film festivals or, beyond, So I think that's a good bit of advice for anyone asking for some free help. Have a plan with the film that you're trying to do, whether it's local distribution or beyond.
We also try not to do it free, to be clear. We have a format that works. We do a most favored nations to kind of, mirror that whole equity thing that I talked about.
Cool.
So we try to pay the actors and the crew the same rate. So the only thing that's going to be outside of that is the crew, equipment rentals and things like that can be sometimes a little more, but that's how we think we keep it fair.
Yeah.
And then people can show up and feel like they got something out of it, some money, and we get to make something. So just so it's hard for me to say free, you know, unless it's like a prop or something like that.
Yeah. So if you're not a writer, but you want to help on ʻOhina films, is there a way to do that? Is that a selective process, or you guys are careful with that?
No, that's more tricky because these are all different teams. So I think that's the hard part, because we always have a lot of people who want to help.
Yes.
And it's hard because it's not like it's one place, one portal. It's all these different teams, right? We're at labs, and that's where all the workshopping happens. And then after that, they kind of go free into the world, right? And they're doing their own thing. Sometimes they'll come back asking for help, and that's when we can say, hey, so and so might be a good fit for you. But I've had some radical adventures, where, for a lead king, starring Brandon Finn, they were working in Utah, and I said, hey, if you need help DPing, I'm your last resort, just call me, and a month out, they did call, and they said, hey, can we take you up on that offer? Couldn't find anyone here locally. Can you pack up your camera and go? And I did, packed up there, said, don't pay me, brought my red and a couple things in a little bag, and we made the movie with that thing, I
saw some of those pictures that you posted. Beautiful locations.
It came out nice.
Yeah.
It was radical. Yeah.
As we come to a close here, I always like to ask, if you had to give one bit of advice to the local filmmaker, maybe a youngster or someone's considering maybe giving up, what would you tell them?
I think that's a tricky one, because the first thing I would say is you need to love this if you want to do it, and I think I've touched on it, right? Like, if you really want to do it and you get flamed or people go after you, like, you got to embrace that. If you really want to do this, like the Spielbergs and all that, not everyone loves those movies. And at the tippy top, there's going to be more people who want to bring you down. And so if you truly want to do this, like, you got to be all in. Like, this has got to be in your blood. And I tell this because I taught at Manoa, and I would say this, and, the C students would think that was good enough. And I was like, no, in this industry, you got to be like a star quality person. And, the perfect example I give is all for Melissa. We're going to go back to that. I'm going to try to friggin' bookmark this thing. But, one of the PAs on that was Dana Ledoux Miller. That was her very first job on any movie. And now she's a writer-director on Moana 2, and she was a rock star. She was the best PA. She was the best at everything. And just like a month or two ago, Moana was doing his thing, and she was like, "Thank you for letting me get the snacks," and that's really what it takes. That's the kind of attitude you're going to need to get in this industry. We're in a tough spot now, but it's in, like I said, transition. Once we get through transition, it's going to get exciting again. It's just going to look different, but there's going to be opportunity.
Great. And, I know you're running probably to create another film, but
yeah, I'm happy to talk about the favorites because that's the hard one.
Yes. What is your favorite project that you've worked? What has meant the most to you, maybe? Whether it was making the project or the outcome of the project itself.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this long and hard, so that's why I was like, "Oh," okay. Because, like I said, they're all your babies, right? Especially if ʻOhina, you're rooting for all of them, so it becomes rough when you're competing against one another, in some awards thing, right? And it just becomes like you're falling apart. But the movie, I gotta say, there's two. This is a cheat, but the one that was really special was Kukini, The Journey of the Merrie Monarch. I did it at work at NMG, and it was one of those creative briefs where they walk me in. They're like, if it's not good, we're gonna cancel it, or no one's gonna see it, and no pressure, and just keep shooting till you figure it out. And it became one of the most beautiful films we've ever created. I didn't have much knowledge of Merrie Monarch, and the way it came together just kind of organically in a way that it did was just like one of those moments in your life where you're like, this is going to change me forever. Knowing the hula halal and getting to know him better, it really made me want to get even deeper and more rooted here in Hawaii, And then going from that into something like Kukini was like, it's just, there's no words. I have to share Kukini because it's amazing, because Paula had this dream, this idea that I thought was crazy, and we somehow found a way, which I still am amazed, but she says she's magic, and I believe it because I will share this. This is why, and they say it in Chief of War, when Kaina is coming up and there's a rainbow, and there's signs. Well, on that first day of Kukini, and Brian Wallace is there, and Lee Minor, we have the heavyweights there, and we're way behind, and it takes like 7 hours to do makeup, and I think we get an hour to shoot. And Iwane's in the makeup chair, and he looks down, and there's a poeo feather. And if you've seen the movie, it's all about his amakua as a poeo. Mm-hmm. And all throughout shooting, we would see feathers, we would see poeo. And the day of the fires, we were doing a scene with Moses Goods, who's from Maui, and 3 poeo flying over, and that's when you're doing something right, and, that's what we're talking about. That's what we live for, is something that transcends, and no greater feeling when you see that.
How can you watch Kukini or the other project that you worked on?
Kahuakai is on all the Hawaiian Airlines, planes and in-flight entertainment. It's also online through NMG, and Kukini is now online on YouTube, just killing it. So, yeah.
Well, if it's okay with you, we'll put a link.
Please do.
Somewhere
Let's get us
in
to
this
a million.
YouTube episode.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys are set up for that profit sharing thing.
No, this is all about saving pick right now. They need our help. So
yeah, they do. Thank you, Gerard. Man, it's been an honor, and I'm honored that you accepted this invitation to this podcast. And I think a lot of people need to hear the things that you have brought to the industry so far, for so long, seeing the faces that are part of this industry and trying to grow it, not only for a whole industry, but for the people of Hawaii and their culture and their stories. So I thank you. Everybody thanks you for being here. You know what? I hope I get to come and speak to you again here at some point down the line.
Yeah, love to.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Aloha.
Aloha.